The Oka Crisis.
The Oka Crisis was a culmination point over the land disputed between a group of Mohawk people and the town of Oka, both located near Montreal, Quebec. The Oka Crisis took place from July 11 to September 26, 1919, lasting for 78 days, involving the Quebec Police and Canadian Armed Forces. This crisis escalated when the Oka Town Council approved the proposed expansion of the golf course from a 9-hole to an 18-hole course onto the Mohawk land. For the Mohawk people, this land is a place where they gather together to reaffirm their commitment to each other, the land, and the Mohawk way of life. There, as well, they bury their dead.
The first claim over the land was placed in the year 1717. Settlers of New France promised to hold the land for the Mohawk people, but they kept sole right to the land. In 1868, 1 year after Confederation, Oka's chief wrote a letter to the government demanding land rights. In 1961, the city of Oka built a private 9-hole golf course beside the sacred burial ground. Another claim had been placed in 1971 and had been accepted for filing, but it was rejected 9 years later. In March of 1989, further expansion had been announced and led to the development of the Oka Crisis. It has been approximately 300 years of unsuccessful attempts to claim the right to the burial sites. The Kanesatake Mohawk issued a warning to the Oka Town Council saying that they were prepared to fight. First, a road barricade was put in place and guarded by armed Mohawk men. Shortly after, police began to arrive armed with rifles and guns. Mohawk warriors from 2 other reserves, Kanawake and Akwesasne, joined the barricade defense. After 2 injunctions to remove the roadblock were ignored, the mayor of Oka asked the provincial police force to intervene.
The Quebec police attacked the barricade using tear gas and flashbang grenades. During this time, the wind blew in the opposite direction and the gas blew back towards the police. A 15-minute gun battle ensued, and because of the amount of tear gas in the air, Corporal Marcel Lemay was hit and killed. The police retreated and set up roadblocks into Oka and the Kanesatake Reserve. As a response to the attack, the Mohawks set up a blockade on the Mercier Bridge, cutting off access between Montreal's southern suburbs and the island of Montreal. It became clear that the Quebec provincial police could no longer control the crisis, and the RCMP were sent to assist them.
On August 8th, Quebec Premier requested assistance from the Canadian Armed Forces, who sent in 800 members to take over from the police at the barricades. The Mohawk protesters were outnumbered and were forced to negotiate a resolution to the situation. The Mohawk people wanted recognition of their sovereignty, no arrests, and long-term negotiations that would define and reunify Mohawk territory.
At the end of August, the Mohawks and soldiers began dismantling the barricades. Mohawk warriors continued to protest until September 26, 1990, when many of them burned their weapons and started to return to the reserve. Many of the Mohawk warriors were stopped by the Canadian Armed Forces and turned over to the police.
In order to prevent further development, the federal government purchased the land, as well as a number of additional plots of land for the Kanesatake. To this day, the Crown lands have not yet been transferred to the Kanesatake Mohawk. The Oka Crisis was an empowering movement that started the mobilization for Aboriginal people standing up for their rights and land, and has laid the foundation for many movements that take place today.
By learning about the Aboriginal people's history, we can be part of the reconciliation by joining them in their fight for their rights.
After many years of colonization and unsuccessful negotiations, it is obvious that the Canadian government never intended to give the land to the Indigenous people.
As social workers, we have an obligation to raise awareness about Indigenous issues.
Free created using Powtoon.